Monsters at Work is a brand new Disney Plus animated series. It's a sequel/spin-off of the original Monsters Inc. movie, and it's one that I've been pretty excited for. This was something they announced like when Disney Plus was first announced, but it took, 3 years or so to actually end up coming out? Monsters Inc. is one of those movies that I had on VHS as a kid, and I've watched it probably well over 50 times. But I never really felt like I was particularly a big fan or anything, but I think I definitely am. It's a cool world, it's funny characters, there's a wholesome plot. It's a fun time. Might be a bit more of one of Pixar's bland concepts, but it's still a ton of fun. So I was really excited when I heard this show is coming to Disney Plus, and I must say, it doesn't disappoint. The main thing that ended up being wrong was I was anticipating this show to be made by Pixar, so I was particularly interested to see what kind of direction Pixar would take for a animated show. And apparently, it's not made by Pixar. It's made by Disney, or some subsidiary of Disney, because it's not even specifically like Disney Studios Animation that's done Big Hero 6 and stuff. If you're a big fan of cartoons, whether it's ones for adults or ones for kids or whatever, goofy ones, story-focused ones, I'm always watching everything I can and making reviews about them. I'm also making a lot of videos about news, because it seems like there's sometimes some news that goes under people's noses. So if you're interested in this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel and press the like button so more people can see these videos. Okay, back to the review. The show follows Tyler Tuskman, who just got an invitation to work at Monsters Inc. after spending some time at Monsters University. He heads over, ready to be a scarer, only to find out that, the place has changed and now everybody's a jokester. So unfortunately, the invitation letter that he got was actually kind of outdated. So while he trains to be a jokester, they put him on as a MIFTer, which is the Monsters Inc. Facilities Team, which is a group of engineers for the facility. Working there are a bunch of other goofy characters who Tyler at first doesn't really get along with, but, of course, eventually learns to like them, but needs to kind of keep the secret that he wants to be a jokester way more than he wants to be a MIFTer. But maybe his feelings will end up changing because of how much fun he has as a MIFTer. Who knows? That's why you gotta watch the show. I don't know why I said it like that. So yeah, like I said, this show really doesn't disappoint, and the way that it continues off of the movie was really, really pleasant to see. Like, the idea that the movie ends with them finding out that laughs give more energy than screams, it's just such a cute idea. But it's not really like a vocal point of the movie. They made a whole Disney World attraction based off this, where there's monsters on stage being voice acted by people behind the scenes, and they tell jokes to the audience and talk directly to audience members and stuff. And I love the concept of that. That's a very fun experience. When my family and I went to that show several years ago, the people on stage actually asked me to stand up and dance, so I had to do that. Probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever done in my life, but it doesn't feel like that at the time when you're swept up in the Disney World vibe. So even though the actual Monsters Inc. movie only saves that laugh stuff for the very end, that attraction and even just it being such a cute concept, it's something that it's in a lot of people's minds when they think of this series. Even though they made Monsters University and the laugh stuff is not addressed in that at all from what I remember. But still, it's an iconic aspect of the movies, and it's very fun to see it touched upon a lot more in this series here. There's also a very perfect mix of new and old in this series. There's a very natural progression from the movie. I did find it a little weird that it takes place minutes after the film stops, but I guess it works out. Maybe just giving a week time gap or something would have made it feel a little less sudden. All the events of the show happen really, really fast if you think about the timeline they present here. Most of the story focuses on a new cast, but the original cast of the movies, like Mike and Sully, are still there, and they're still pretty important, but they never take too much of the spotlight. Everything's always focused on Tyler and the other MIFTers, but Mike and Sully are implemented really, really well. The way that the casts mesh together feels very natural. They're both great, and they both have time to shine. I think the only thing I have to say about that is that I did think Sully seemed a little bit bland of a character. I guess maybe he just was in the movies, but I don't know. He had a bit of an egotistical aspect to his personality in the movies that I guess the moral of the movies was for him to let go of that side of himself and become a more caring person. So I guess that makes sense. But, it's almost like they didn't know what to do with him in this series. He has a few sweet moments with Tyler where he's being a mentor. But other than that, there's never really an episode plot that focuses on just him. He only has a handful of dialogue sometimes. He's totally sidelined, especially compared to how the show uses Mike. But, I guess Mike is the more iconic character, and he's in charge now because of the whole comedy thing that's going on. It's just very obvious to me that Sully is sidelined. I wish we had more moments of Sully where it wasn't just him saying like a one-liner to make fun of Mike, because that's mostly all he ever did. There are some new characters that are supposed to like be a part of the main cast, sort of. Like Roz is replaced with her sister Rose, but they're exactly the same. And that's the joke, I guess, but it seems like a weird thing to do. Like, they just wanted an OC, but then they also wanted to make a bunch of jokes where Mike thinks that she's still Roz, but she's a different person, but she has the same voice actor and essentially the same design except for different hair. Like, I don't know, was that supposed to be like really funny, or was that just like a weird thing they had to do for it to make sense that Roz was also like the child protection people leader too? Like, I don't know, that was a weird unnecessary thing. There's also they give Mike a rival character, but he's just Mike but blue, which would be funny if they were self-referential about that the same way that they are about the Roz thing, but they aren't, so it does come off pretty lazy. He's voiced by Gabriel Iglesias, who is an absolutely hilarious guy. I love him, and they even hyped up this character by doing promotional stuff, but he's in like 2 episodes. He has like a cameo in one, and then he's the villain in the other, but when he's playing the villain, he doesn't really do anything. He's just like a jerk. He just makes fun of Mike a little. He was a totally bland cookie-cutter rival. Why'd they get such a funny guy to voice him, but then they had him do nothing and gave him like no distinct personality? They could have given him something other than a Smash Bros. Color palette design as well. I was seeing a lot of people wanted Randall to return. I guess there's like a collective of the internet that thinks he's sexy, apparently. This happens with every villain character, so I mean, whatever. I guess I can see where they're coming from. I didn't expect him to return at all, though. But like, whenever I was looking this show up or seeing opinions, everybody was saying like, "Oh, I can't wait for Randall to show up," or like drawing fan art of Randall and stuff. And it's like, nothing about the show gave me the impression that he would show up. I hope that didn't leave people disappointed, but like, he's kind of a one and done villain. I really wouldn't want to see him again. Like, what would he do here? Like, trying to make them go back to screen power? Like, it just wouldn't really be interesting. I'd rather have this show introduce a new villain. I really want to see what another villain design from this universe would look like, because there's fun designs here. They do bring back a seemingly one-off character from the movie, and even create a backstory for them that wasn't present before, and I don't know if I like that or not. It was a very wholesome story, but I feel like that specific character should have just been a one-off to the movie. Though I assume Pixar must have been around to approve the story direction that they decided for him, but I would have preferred either a more interesting story or just like not having the character reappear. It's unnecessary because there was already so much from the movie already. It tried to answer a question that I didn't really think many fans of the movie cared too much about, or like it was at least one that I didn't care about and one that could have been ambiguous and still have been fine. But anyways, for the new cast, all the Mifters, they're really hilarious. They have really great voice acting. Like all the voice acting here is fantastic. There's a lot of good delivery, a lot of surprisingly, like the show's mostly a mix of like dry humor and slapstick, I would say. Like there's some really good dry delivery. I could see some people possibly thinking that the new characters are annoying, but that's the exact kind of trope that I find really funny. The show has a found family dynamic, basically, with Tyler being thrown into this totally goofy and optimistic group of weirdos. Tyler wants to be a jokester the whole time, but he eventually learns that being a Mifter isn't as bad as he thinks. And just this sort of dynamic of a grouchy character being thrown in with a bunch of painfully happy or super weird characters is a trope that I really love. And it's very, very funny in this series. The personalities that these characters have are very entertaining to me. Another thing I found really funny about this show is that there's a lot of dark humor, surprisingly. Like, there's a ton of humor about how Mifters before Tyler all died horrible deaths while on the job. And that's why nobody really works for this division. They make a joke like this in the first episode, and I was like, wow, that's dark, but that's really funny. And I expected that to be the only example of that type of humor, but no. One of the characters is like their whole personality to keep telling dark stories like that. Almost once per episode, they'll mention some past coworker who died in some horrible way. It's really funny. Heck, there's an entire episode about it where they celebrate the anniversary of some guy's death. They keep his hair in a jar, and Tyler ends up losing the piece of the hair. It's a whole thing. I was half expecting the episode to have a moment where it was like, oh, the guy isn't really dead, because like, you know, they mentioned like specifically that he's dead multiple times. But nope. He died. He's actually dead. He got sucked into this horrifying door shredder, which they show on screen as this bizarre saw contraption that Tyler himself almost gets caught in. It's so funny that they decide to take that sort of direction for the humor. It's really morbid, but it's really funny, and, you know, it's a Disney thing, so you wouldn't really think that that's kind of the humor they would go for. but it's a cartoon, so it's fine, right? But yeah, all the episodes are a lot of fun. There's a really enjoyable arc throughout the series. It feels very natural. It feels like it wouldn't need a second season the way it ends, but I want it to have a second season, and I think it is getting one, just because it's so much fun. I want to see more of these characters in this world. Story ends on a very positive note. Admittedly, the finale episode is pretty bland, but that's kind of just because it's focused on like emotional growth and like trying to be kind of sappy. There's not really any conflict or adventure and drama the same way that there is in other episodes. It's an adorable conclusion, but it's not really exciting. In fact, it's pretty boring. Like, a lot of it kind of takes place in like just 2 different rooms the whole time. I was expecting this series to be made by Pixar, which is why I would have expected some really, really nice animation here. I'm sure Pixar helped with some designs and like the story and stuff, but probably just small things. Though even without them, the animation is really great. There's a lot of nice texturing on everything. This was especially noticeable when I was watching on a computer monitor. For some reason, it looked a lot better when you're up close rather than when I was far away watching on TVs. It looks basically about as good, maybe just like slightly worse, than Monsters University looks. There's a bit of a lack of like interesting motion animation, like nothing is really as slapsticky as it should be. And maybe some of the lighting is a little weird. Maybe sometimes characters kind of look like they have like dead eyes, but it's totally fine, especially for what's a TV series, basically. I mean, I can't really remember what the last CGI animated show I've watched is. Like, I've been very invested in 2D stuff for the past several years. I kind of only save CG for movies, so this is probably actually the first CG TV cartoon I've watched in a long time. Although it's a streaming cartoon, whatever, same thing. Also, speaking of streaming, shout out to Disney Plus for releasing episodes weekly. Greatly prefer that because it gives you something to look forward to. It gives you something to talk to other people about. And, it doesn't become like this rush where you have to dedicate a day to watching a show. You have to watch it as soon as possible because you need to not find spoilers and stuff. Having just one episode to worry about on a weekly basis is way more enjoyable of a viewing experience. But this show also is very bingeable because it has a bit of a progressive story. So if you want to sit back and watch all the episodes now that they're released, you'll probably have just about a great time too. So this series is really fun. I'm glad it was as quality as it is. If you're a fan of the Monsters Inc. movies, or I guess the Monsters Inc. universe, I should say, if you're a fan, you'll definitely like this. There's such a good mix of new stuff and old stuff. It's honestly got to be one of the best mixes of nostalgia and new stuff in a story that like I've seen in a very long time. The cast is great. There's a lot of funny moments, and it's just overall very, very sweet and endearing show, even if they do throw in some pleasantly funny dark humor sometimes. If you want something that's just nice and simple to watch, I think you should definitely check this series out. Every episode's only 30 minutes, so it's pretty quick to get through. Like I said before, I do hope that this gets a second season, just because I want to see more of these characters. I had a lot of fun watching this. So have you seen the series, or did I help make you interested in it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to know when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, and super special thanks to my Patreon supporters. Support me on Patreon and you'll be able to submit video topics, see exclusive behind the scenes content, and help me keep this channel going. Also follow me on Twitter and TikTok for special updates.